All right, today we are discussing loops within loops, loopception, very exciting things. So, very brief for loop review. Let's say I want to write a for loop that prints the numbers 1, 2, and 3 all in a row on a line, just like this. How would I go about doing that?
For I equals 1, and then, I equals 1, and then I less than or equal to 3, and then I plus plus.
Exactly. So we start our iterator at 1. As long as it's less than or equal to 3, this could also just be I less than 4. Either one works. We're going to increase by 1 each time. Then we're going to print our I and a space, and that gives us 1, 2, 3. So using this code, how could we create a times table where the output in each row includes an increasing row of values? So we have 1, 2, 3, and then 2, 4, 6, 3, 6, 9, and then 4, 8, and 12. I mean, so one way we could do this would be just to copy our code over and over again, but that's horrible and inefficient. And also, we kind of learned that if you're copying and pasting code like this, you can probably use a loop to do it. And if we look, we're multiplying by an increasing number each time. So here we're invisibly multiplying by 1. Everything multiplied by 1 is itself. Here we're multiplying by 2. Here we're multiplying by 3. So I could potentially put all of this, I could put one of these loops inside of another loop and then just multiply by a second iterator. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to fix this redundancy by adding a second for loop. I'm going to start my first for loop. I'm going to say int I equals 1, I less than or equal to 4, because I want to loop 4 times. We're going to increase I. And then we're going to loop with a second for loop. This one is inside of the first one. So we have our open curly brace, and then we have our for loop, our second for loop. So I'm going to use a different variable name here so that these aren't clashing. So here I'm using the variable name j, it's the next letter in the alphabet. J is going to also start at 1, and we're going to loop as long as j is less than or equal to 3. So we're going to loop for our 3 across, and we're going to and then increase j. So each time through our j for loop, we're going to print I times j and then a space. And then after the j for loop is finished, we're going to print a new line. So let's really quick, after the process of putting a loop inside of another for loop, or any loop inside of any loop, this is called nesting. We're nesting a loop inside of another loop. So let's run through this. I am going to start my I at 1. I'm going to make my I variable. I'm going to check I is currently less than 4, so my condition is true. So we're going to enter our for loop, and the first thing in this for loop is another for loop. So we're going to create our variable j. J is going to also equal 1. That second condition is also true. So then we can print I times j. 1 times 1, that gives us 1. So the next thing to run after we run the body of this for loop is we're going to run the increment for that for loop. So this inside for loop is going to fully execute before this outer for loop changes its iterator even once. So j is going to increase to 2. We're going to check our condition. 2 is still less than 3, so we're going to enter our loop. 1 times 2 is 2. Increase j, still less than or equal to 3. 1 times 3 is 3. Increase j, and now j is not less than or equal to 3, so we're going to exit our loop. We're going to print a new line. So now our cursor is essentially right here. Now, once I've exited this for loop, if we look in this box up here, my J box is empty. So if I were to try to do J++, what do you think would happen?
The variable wouldn't be assigned, so an error.
Exactly. We're going to get an error because at this point, J doesn't exist anymore. That variable J only exists within the bounds of this inside for loop. So if I try to edit it outside of that loop, I'm going to get an error. So this is just a reminder of the scope of these variables, and we'll talk about this again later in this presentation, that the loop iterator variable only exists inside of its own loop. All right, so let's continue with our real code. After the inside of our, or after the body of our I for loop has finished, we're going to increase our I iterator. I goes to 2. That condition is still true. Then we're going to enter our second for loop again. We're going to restart it. J is going to get back to 1. Condition is true. So 2 times 1 is 2. J increases, still true. 2 times 2 is 4. J increases, that's still true. 2 times 3 is 6. J increases, condition is false. We print a new line. And at this point, I think you guys understand the pattern. So I increases to 3. When then that condition is true, so we'll print that row. I increases to 4. We print that row. And then when I increases to 5, our condition is false and our program is now finished. So does the execution of double for loops make sense? I realize I'm not looking at any other screen, so I can't see anyone doing a thumbs up. So cool. All right. And if we want to find out how many times we're going to run this inside code, we can calculate that by multiplying the number of times each of these individual for loops is going to run. So this outside loop is going to run 4 times. I is going to equal 1, 2, 3, and 4. This inside loop is going to run 3 times. I is going to equal 1, 2, and 3. So 4 times 3 equals 12. So we see 12 total outputs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There we go. We have 12 total outputs. And very conveniently, our last output was 4 times 3. So if we want to look at a flowchart for how that nesting of a for loop would look, we're going to initialize our first iterator. We're going to check our first for condition. As long as this is true, we're going to initialize our second iterator, check our second condition, and loop as long as that second condition is true, continuously updating our iterator number 2. As soon as that second condition becomes false, we will update our first iterator, check that first condition, and repeat the inside loop. And then we'll do the outside loop and continuously do the inside loop until our outside condition becomes false, at which point we will exit all of our loops. So a topic I don't think we've covered super thoroughly is scope. Scope is what is going to determine where and when a variable exists and where it's accessible. And this is usually determined by where that variable is declared. So any variable that's declared within a method is only in scope within that method. So you can only access it from inside of the method where you declared it. A variable that's declared in a class is only in scope within that class. So I can't access that variable from outside of that class because it won't exist from outside of that class. Since methods are going to exist within a class, any variable inside of a class will be accessible to the methods inside that class because it will be in scope. And very similarly, any variable declared within a for loop will only be in scope inside of that for loop. So you can't create, your iterators are only going to exist inside the loop where you declared them.
Even if the class is public or private?
Yes. So if I have like my length, my width and height in the rectangle class, I can't access the width and height variables by themselves in my main method in a different class, because those variables only exist with those names in my rectangle class. I could reference them through a rectangle object, but I can't just try and access a width variable or a height variable, because it would refer to a different thing. It's a good question, though. Thank you. So if we look at this here code, we've got three variables. We've got our before loop variable, we've got our int I, and we have our int j. Our before loop variable, since it's declared before the for loops, that's going to be in scope throughout our entire program. That can be accessed and changed anywhere and everywhere within this code. Our iterator I, that is going to exist within the bounds of its for loop. And our iterator j is going to exist within the bounds of its for loop. So we have decreasing sizes of scope as we get smaller, or as we go further in on our for loops. And our last little thing, nesting is not a property exclusive to for loops. You can nest while loops as well. And the two types of loops can even be nested with each other. So here on the left, I have a while loop with a while loop inside. And these are, all of these examples are going to produce that times table that we saw earlier. This one's going to be 5 by 5. I think this one will also be 5 by 5 rather than the 3 by 4, but it does the same thing. So here I have a while loop within a while loop. Here I have a for loop within a while loop. You could also have a while loop inside of a for loop, and it would work just the same. The inside loop needs to finish executing before the outside loop can continue. All right, does that all make sense? Looping within loops? All right, folks,